UFC 278, Usman vs Edwards 2 takes place this weekend, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, giving my prediction and breakdown for every single fight on the card, starting with the early prelim opener of Victor Altamirano versus Daniel Da Silva. I'm going to be going with Victor Altamirano here over Daniel Da Silva, because Daniel Da Silva, in my opinion, it's not just about the fact that he's losing, it's the reasons why he is losing. And to me, from watching the fights that I've seen so far, the reasons why he's losing is because he simply isn't good enough to win. And it's not like he got cracked here and got rocked in this moment and oh well, you know, he didn't quite do enough in a decision loss and maybe he can learn from this. In my opinion, he reeks of inexperience against good competition opponents. Maybe he doesn't spar with the best of competition or anything like that, but I just don't see a mindset of a person who's good enough to win. Whereas Victor Altamirano seems like a guy who's got that experience. He knows he's good enough. He's going hard in the gym, and he's got the mindset to win. And in all honesty, I like this guy. I think he's got a great style. He's a bit like the flyweight Tony Ferguson. I thought he beat Carlos Hernandez in his debut, but they gave the fight to Carlos Hernandez. He won on the Contender Series in a very close fight as well, but he's doing this against good competition opponents. His only loss is to Jared Brooks, who, in my opinion, outside of a select few, like obviously Demetrius Johnson and Adriano Moraes, this guy might be the best flyweight outside the UFC right now. He's on a win streak at 1FC himself, soon to take on the winner of Demetrius Johnson versus Adriano Moraes. Either way, I'm going with Victor Altamirano. Daniel Da Silva, his last loss that he had, he just made such rookie errors. I can't unsee it, and I think he's going to get beaten by Altamirano by decision. Moving on up the card, Aori Qileng versus Jay Perrin. I'm going to be going with Aori Qileng here over Jay Perrin. A lot of these fights are quite easy to predict, so we're going to look out for a few underdogs that I'm going to go with on this card. So Jay Perrin is just way worse than Aori Qileng, and that's just the simple reality of it. It's a little bit like the first fight on the card. Aori Qileng is a very good fighter, 29 years of age, can be making some big improvements. He got a massive big first round finish at bantamweight against Cameron Else. He recently fought at flyweight and had a tough decision loss to Jeff Molina that he would have won if he didn't get like rocked at the end of the second round and rocked in the third round as well. He even almost finished Jeff Molina at the end of that fight. That was an amazing fight if you want to go back and watch it. Cody Durden, you know, he lost that fight, but it was a very close fight. He arguably did more damage, but Durden was just sort of manipulating his body weight enough to sort of like win the rounds based on just throwing around Aori Qileng in some of the grappling moments. So they went to that because the striking was quite close. But those are very good fighters, and I think at flyweight, he drained himself too much, and at bantamweight, he's going to have way more energy, way more durability, and I like his chances a lot more, so I think he's going to beat Jay Perrin. Jay Perrin, 10-5, 29 years of age, lost to Mario Batista in his first fight in the UFC. Had an okay performance, but he's never really beaten anyone that good in his career, so I'm definitely going to be going with Aori Qileng. Too much power, too much damage, and too durable for Jay Perrin, so I'm going to go with Aori Qileng by first round KO, getting the job done. Moving on to another fight up the card, which is Amir Albazi versus Francisco Figueiredo. I'm going to be going with Amir Albazi over Francisco Figueiredo. Francisco Figueiredo is good, but as I said, those wins are against guys like Daniel Da Silva. He is good. He's explosive. He's big for flyweight. He can make things happen out of nowhere. He's a lot like Figueiredo himself, but just a little bit of the knockoff version of him. The loss to Malcolm Gordon, again, is a lack of understanding of life in general, really. I really question this guy's IQ and decision-making in the cage. And I think against a guy who has the grappling level of Amir Albazi, who's got really, really good grappling, by the way, that I really, really highly respect, beat Zhalgas Magulov and did that by taking the back in certain moments where he needed to. Seeing Francisco Figueiredo give up top position to Malcolm Gordon in the scrambles and just make incorrect movements in the scrambles that they were having to give up bad positions and stuff like that. I feel as though if that's going to happen in this fight against Amir Albazi, he's latching up the back and he's choking out Francisco Figueiredo. So I'm going to be going with a second round rear naked choke for Amir Albazi here. Francisco Figueiredo beat Jerome Rivera by decision and KO Jerome Rivera. He's easy to KO at this point. Like, everyone does it. Come on. Even I've done it. I haven't done it, but a lot of people have KO'd Jerome Rivera. Took him to a decision, quite a hard-fought decision as well. He beat Daniel da Silva, but again, I don't really know what to think of him. And he also should have lost his fight before he got into the UFC. They signed him off of a draw that he got gifted massively. So I don't believe in this guy, and I feel like Amir Albazi is someone I can get behind as a contender. He fought tough challenges. He's 28 years of age. He's got a lot of potential moving forward. He trains at London Shoot Fighters with guys like MVP and stuff like that, so he's at a good gym with a lot of like notoriety in the UK. Very good fighter. Beat Malcolm Gordon himself by triangle choke in the first round. This is the difference between the two of them in terms of the grappling. So Amir Albazi is a guy who can enforce that grappling, and if he does enforce it, he wins. Also lost to Jose Torres early in his career, but again, Jose Torres, amazing flyweight outside the UFC. There's a few of them. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Amir Albazi get a rear naked choke in the second round or first round. Moving on. AJ Fletcher versus Ange Loosa. Majority of people picking AJ Fletcher here. I believe he's the favourite in this bout as well by quite some standard. I'm going to be going with Ange Loosa over AJ Fletcher. I'm not convinced by AJ Fletcher. I really am. I know he's a prospect that trains with Dustin Poirier and he's got a bunch of good people around him. And he is quite a big favourite here. But I'm taking the underdog here of Ange Loosa. I like Ange Loosa's hustle, man. Like he's had some losses, but to me, he's never looked like a guy who doesn't belong. Like, he took that fight with Munir Lazzez on short notice, you know what I mean, to get himself into the UFC, and he put up a good fight. Munir Lazzez was one step ahead of him and outstruck him, but he put up a good fight on short notice, and even put up a great fight against Jack Della Maddalena, who just ran through Ramazan Emeev after a little bit of trouble in the grappling. So on the feet, he destroyed Ramazan Emeev, but against Ange Loosa's tough as all nails, took all the shots that Jack Della Maddalena had to give him, gave him back a lot of shots as well, had some grappling moments against him as well, where he took him down and had him in an arm triangle and stuff like that. So, you know, AJ Fletcher's loss to Matthew Semmelsberger hasn't aged too well. That's all I'm going to say. Matthew Semmelsberger looked a little bit amateurish against Alex Morono, who is good, but I don't really hold to too high of a standard, so I'm going to be going with Ange Loosa, being able to outstrike AJ Fletcher and wear him down and stop him from getting takedowns and stand back up and knee him to the body and elbow him in the clinch and land good shots at range and land good jabs to the body at range. And I just think AJ Fletcher had reeks of a protected record. If you look at his fights before he beat the guy on the Contender Series, I mean, 3-4 before that, 8-17, sorry, not 18-7, 8-17 his opponent before that, 6-3, 10-9, you know what I mean, like 9-16, like I don't like the way his team is managing him, and it reeks to me like they don't have any confidence in him whatsoever. So I'm definitely going to be going with Ange Loosa to get this one done in an upset. I respect his game. He looks very technical, and I think on a full camp and some time to develop himself, which he's had now, I think he's going to do quite well. So, decision win. Ange Loosa upset. Moving on, Miranda Maverick versus Shanna Young. I'm going with Miranda Maverick. I think this is a no-brainer. Shanna Young is an older girl here, 31 years of age. You've got Miranda Maverick, very young, 25 years of age. And also, she's beaten her before. A lot of people don't know that, but it was an exhibition match in Victor. It was a little bit of a tournament they had going on, so it didn't really count towards their pro records. But Miranda Maverick beat Shanna Young by rear naked choke in the first round with ease. And if you want to look at, you know, where they've gone from there, Miranda Maverick went from 22 to 25. And when she was 22, she was part-time in school as well. Like, she wasn't even pursuing this as a full-time career. Whereas Shanna Young was pursuing it as a full-time career. And, like, sure, she switched to Syndicate MMA. Maybe there's going to be some improvements there, but I don't see her getting as good as Miranda Maverick has gotten in that time, because she went from 28 to 31. She lost to Egger, she lost to Chasson, she lost to Sarah Alpar on the Contender Series, and Maverick herself. So I just don't see her making up the difference, and I think it's going to be a clear win. Rear naked choke again in the first round for Miranda Maverick. Why not do the same thing again that worked for you the first time? I'll say first round rear naked choke for Miranda Maverick, and I think there's some good money, because it's a women's fight, to put some money down on a first round finish. Moving on. Up the card, Sean Woodson versus Luis Saldana. By the way, Miranda Maverick looked good against Macy Barber, should have won that, and Macy Barber's now looking really good in the grappling, so more evidence. She should have won against Macy Barber, and Macy Barber's now looking good. Sean Woodson versus Luis Saldana. Sean Woodson is going to win. Man, this is a bit of a one-sided card. You've got to really pick your underdogs here. Sean Woodson's going to win. Luis Saldana, I don't believe in him as a contender. Like, man, this card. God, it's hard to get excited for a lot of these matchups. Sean Woodson is going to win, man. He looks good as a fighter. Sure, he lost to Julian Erosa, but So did Charles Jourdain. You know, we've seen a lot of fighters lose to Julian Erosa. So did Nate Landwehr. And these guys look good on the rebound. So Julian Erosa can just be that problem for a certain few styles of opponents. And that's proven here as well. Woodson was doing very well against him before losing in the third round. He just sort of got out-conditioned by Julian Erosa because he sort of gassed out, beating him up. Is essentially what happened in that matchup. So, Sean Woodson now, he goes to the body a lot more since that moment to sort of like, while he's ahead and while he's winning, to invest on his opponent, which I think is a good idea, especially if you do worry about gassing out again. So I think he's a lot more efficient with his attacks. He doesn't headhunt as much anymore. He likes to go to the body a bit more. And Luis Saldana has just never looked good in any fight of his entire career ever. Am I wrong? Jordan Griffin, he looked terrible. Austin Lingo, he lost. Austin Lingo's terrible, and he looked terrible in that matchup as well. Bruno Souza, he lost. He arguably should have lost to Jordan Griffin as well. He beat Bruno Souza, but again, he didn't look good. Like, it's just he does not look good in any of his fights. He looks very rudimentary in his stand-up. He has no grappling ability either. So I think it's going to be a stand-up match between him and Sean Woodson, and Sean Woodson has got 6 inches of reach on him. Big problem. No. 6 inches of reach. Why did I make such a big deal out of that? 6 inches of reach on him. And he's way better with that reach as well. So I'm going to go Sean Woodson. Body shot finish against a cage. Round 1. TKO. Moving on. Up the card. Lucie Pudilova versus Yanan Wu. Oh my god, these fights. Lucie Pudilova is going to win this one in my opinion. Yanan Wu is, you know, she's alright. You know what I'm saying? Like, she trains at Jackson Wink, but she's lost to Mary Bueno Silva, lost to Jocelyn Edwards, lost to Mizuke Inoue. Lost to Gina Mazzani. Like, I know she's going to be making improvements, and she is a young fighter at 26 years of age, but Lucie Pudilova's 28. She's not like an old girl herself, and she's on a 2-fight win streak outside the UFC, and sure, she lost to some fighters outside the UFC, and maybe there's going to be some problems for Yanan Wu, but this is a Lucie Pudilova who used to be in the UFC herself, that came out of the UFC, but was fighting some like Liz Carmouche at the time in 2019, and Irene Aldana, who she went to a split decision with, and Irene Aldana's now in a position where she could be earning herself a title shot with her next win. She lost to some girls like Antonina Shevchenko, Justine Kish, I get it, but she was young at the time, inexperienced, and now I think she'll be able to make a bit of a comeback, develop her skills a bit more. She's 5-1 in her last 6 matchups outside the UFC. I reckon she's going to take this one back in the UFC, her big moment, and I think she's going to rise to the occasion and get a 29-28 decision win over Yanan Wu. Moving on, up the card, Jared Gordon versus Leonardo Santos. 2 years ago, this matchup gets made. I might be picking Leonardo Santos. Can't pick him. Dude looks old and done with the sport. If I'm being really honest with you. The Clay Guida fight proved to me, yeah, he hurt Clay Guida. This guy ain't training the way he used to because he's gassing consistently in matchups. He even started to gas against Grant Dawson as well in that third round. I thought Dawson won both the first 2 rounds of that matchup, and we later learned, you know, even in a Jared Gordon matchup, that Dawson's maybe not as good as he thought he was, because he was like almost on his way to losing that Gordon matchup before he pulled off the rear naked choke in round 3, and he had a tough fight with Rick Glenn that ended in a draw where he gassed as well. So I think if Grant Dawson can push a pace on Leonardo Santos and get him out of there, fair play with a little bit of time to go, but he won that fight because he was pushing a pace. If Gordon can kind of almost do it against Dawson but get caught in a rear naked, I reckon Gordon's going to be able to do it to Leonardo Santos. And this is just a little bit longer in Leonardo Santos' career. He's been out for another 8 months. He was 41, now he's 42. Like, it's getting to the point now where lightweight ain't no place for old men, and Jared Gordon's 33, still somewhat in his athletic prime, and I reckon he's going to get this one done. He's got good grappling in general. Beat Joe Selecki, who's a great grappler himself. You know, he pushed a pace on Danny Chavez, pushed a pace on Chris Fishgold, so I reckon he's going to be able to push a pace on Leonardo Santos and get him out of there. No, 3rd round finish. TKO to ground and pound. Sloppy, not cool looking, but little tappy blows because Santos is gassed more than anything else. Moving on. Up the card, Tyson Pedro versus Harry Hunsucker. On the main card of a pay-per-view. What are you doing to us, UFC? Tyson Pedro's going to win. However, Harry Hunsucker, from what I've seen of this man, has deceptively fast hands. That needs to be mentioned in this matchup. Deceptively fast hands. However, the new approach of Tyson Pedro, from what I'm seeing, is to avoid boxing exchanges altogether and chop at the legs at range, and this is what Tuivasa did to beat Harry Hunsucker, and who is Tyson Pedro's best friend and training partner? Tai Tuivasa. You know what I'm saying? They train together a lot. If there's anyone who can give him some advice on how to deal with Harry Hunsucker, it is Tai Tuivasa, so he's got that advantage there, but he's using a lot more calf kicks, using them Samoan bones for good with those calf kicks, may I say. And I think he's going to utilize those against Harry Hunsucker, chopping at the legs, going to the body with that front kick he was throwing against DK Villanueva. As long as he avoids the boxing exchanges early, this should be a pretty safe win. And I think his coaches will tell him that. Avoid the boxing exchanges early. This guy, Harry Hunsucker, he's not good technically, but he's got weirdly fast hands for a guy his size. Weirdly fast hands and a lot of KO power. So I feel as though they should be going with Tyson Pedro. Second round submission. He sort of stalls out the first round with calf kicks and front kicks to the body, starts wearing down Hunsucker, they end up in an exchange, and he finds himself like a Kimura submission in the second round is one that he likes to go to, so that's what I'm going to go with. Moving on, up the card, Marcin Tybura versus Alexander Romanov. Live dog, but I am going to go with Alexander Romanov here because I believe in the improvement that he is showing in his career, but man, live dog for Marcin Tybura here. He's got good grappling. He's 22-7 as a heavyweight. He's had the massive great fights against some of the best fighters like Alexander Volkov, 29-28. It was a close fight, you know. Augusto Sakai, he lost. Terribly aged win. Terribly aged loss, sorry. Terribly aged loss. However, he beats Sergey Spivak. Beat Grishin. Underrated win for a heavyweight to get. Grishin's a big boy, and maybe I think he took that fight on short notice coming into the UFC, but Grishin's a very technical, good veteran. And Ben Rothwell, he beat him. He beat Greg Hardy, he beat Walt Harris. So he can beat good guys. I just don't think he'll be able to out-grapple Romanov. And because of this, I think he's just going to get caught up in like a bad grappling match for himself. And I think he's been chinned a lot now in his career. Brutal finish that he got against Derek Lewis. He got finished in that fight. Got finished by Shamil Abdurakhimov by KO. Got finished by Augusto Sakai by KO. So I honestly wouldn't... I'm going to say first round KO for Alexander Romanov. He's got decently okay stand-up with body kicks, inside leg kicks, and I think there's going to be a mindset of Tybura of better stuff to take down, better stuff to take down, and I can see Romanov faking it and landing an overhand and KOing him. So I'm actually going to go with first round brutal KO for Alexander Romanov. I'm sensing a worried fighter about a takedown that's coming his way in Marcin Tybura that's going to get chinned by a powerful guy in Alexander Romanov, who's been looking great recently. And even if it does go to the grappling, I do believe in the grappling of Alexander Romanov. He's a weirdly strong guy, and I think that'll carry him in some moments against Marcin Tybura, who is big. But Alexander Romanov, we see him getting in better shape every single time he goes out there. And I think his conditioning's going to be a lot better now. It wasn't the best against Juan Espino, but he was out grappling Espino early on, started to fade as that fight went on, and eventually, you know, the groin shot happened and he quit, let's be real. But Espino, I think, out-grapples a lot of the top guys at heavyweight as well. So I feel as though now he's a bit slimmer. Now he's got his nutrition in order. I think he's going to be a lot better in the conditioning department. And I think he's going to be able to beat Marcin Tybura regardless. But I'm sensing a first-round KO from Romanov. Inside leg kicks from Romanov. Body kicks from Romanov. Fakes a takedown. Doesn't get it. You know what I'm saying? Tybura moves out of the way. His back's against the cage. Romanov fakes a takedown. Massive overhand. Catches Tybura. Puts him out. He's been KO'd so many times already. Romanov first round KO on a hesitant Tybura. Moving on up the card. Jose Aldo versus Merab Dvalishvili. I'm going to be going with Jose Aldo to beat Merab here. I'm not quite sure what the odds are. I'll check him now. Jose Aldo is actually an underdog on some sites. Majority of sites, I believe he's an underdog. So I'm taking the underdog here of Jose Aldo over Merab Dvalishvili. I feel like Merab is good, but Aldo is so big for the division that I think it's going to be very hard for Merab to get a finish on him. And knowing what's on the line for Aldo here, a title shot if he wins is almost guaranteed at this point when you look at the matchups that are being made. He's beaten Marlon Vera, and that's done very well for him moving forward, seeing how good Vera has done. So I feel as though if he wins, it's a guaranteed title shot. He knows that. I don't see a hesitant Aldo quitting and not showing up. I see him putting on a good performance here. And I think Merab is just so open in some of the stand-up exchanges. We saw that against Moraes. And Moraes is a powerful guy, I get it. But Aldo's equally powerful. He's got good cardio for the bantamweight division. It seems like something he's fixed recently as well. And I feel like he's got really underrated takedown defense and explosiveness. And I think if I'm going to be honest about how I see this fight going, I think we see a Jose Aldo knee to the face KO is what I think we're going to see. Merab seems to have trouble keeping guys on the ground. He gets them down a lot, but they get right back up. John Dodson is one of these guys. Even Gustavo Lopez. People talk about the takedown record of Merab. Lopez kept getting back up. Kenny got back up. Like, these guys are getting back up against Merab quite often. And I think if Aldo has that moment where he's back up and he's fighting in the clinch, I really see a knee KO in the clinch from Jose Aldo, original Chad Mendes fight style. Aldo versus Mendes 1. A knee right to the mush on Merab Dvalishvili here in round 2, I think it's going to be. It's going to be a, oh no, Aldo, what's going to happen in round 1? And then boom, finishes Merab off. Merab's a little bit chinny, I'll be honest. And if you look at the people Aldo's lost to, Volkanovski, Holloway, Piotr Yan, and Moraes by split decision. A lot of people think he won. I thought Moraes won, but that's a pure stand-up fight, and that's Moraes' game, so... yeah, either way, I'm going with Jose Aldo. He's looked on top form recently. His shots seem more powerful than ever. His cardio seems better than ever. So I think he's really made a home for himself at bantamweight. And I think the size is going to be a problem for Merab. I really do believe so. And Aldo ain't going to gas like Moraes. So that's how I feel about that. Merab's a very small guy for bantamweight. Not a very long reach whatsoever. I'm going with Aldo getting this one done by KO in the second round with a knee. Moving on to the co-main event, Paulo Costa versus Luke Rockhold. I'm going with Paulo Costa by KO. I think this is a pretty obvious choice. I don't see a lot of people picking Luke Rockhold. I'll just check the percentage right now. We've got 11% of people on Tapology picking Luke Rockhold, so I don't believe in Luke Rockhold either. It's just his chin, man. And you got to consider his chin after a long time out of the cage of not taking that type of punishment. His chin after aging even more. His chin after being KO'd in his last fight before he left. His chin after not making the middleweight weight cut for... over 3 years, he has not made middleweight. No, wait. Luke Rockhold has not made middleweight after a middleweight weight cut that he has, which is brutal for him, since February of 2018. That's 4.5 years he has not made middleweight. You're telling me he goes out there and takes punishment off Paulo Costa? He's going to need to take punishment. And that's the problem that I have with this. One thing people massively underrate about Paulo Costa are his strength and scramble ability. He's got really short arms for the middleweight division, but they really benefit him because he can get underhooks. He's strong in those positions as well. A lot of the strength stuff and mobility stuff in bodybuilding and stuff like that, when you test strength, is a lot of it is due to like range of motion. That people have to go through with a lot of the weights that they lift, and a lot of that is because a guy with shorter arms is just going to be able to do stuff easier than guys with longer arms, and I think that's a massive benefit for Costa in grappling exchanges that we saw against Yoel Romero. Romero would take him down, and Costa would get an underhook and just sort of like toss Romero over and end up on top many times, even in the third round when he was exhausted. So I don't see Costa slowing down. His cardio seemed to improve in his last fight against Vettori. Fair play, he didn't cut weight for that one, but I think he's still going to apply that and have that mentality of I can go 5 rounds. He pushes a hard pace in a 3-rounder anyway. I feel as though he's going to catch Costa and put him out in the first round by KO. Grappling defense underrated. Don't see Rockhold out grappling him. And Rockhold seems to slam kicks at range. Have fun doing that against Paulo Costa because he does the same thing, but he's not as brittle as you. And also, Rockhold's had a bunch of problems with his kicking leg, and I don't see him wanting to kick the arms of Costa too much in this matchup. So, fair play, he could play that kicking game at range, but he doesn't seem to have the same head movement after his kicks that Adesanya does. So, I see him throwing a kick, and while he's pulling the kick back, I see Costa landing a lead hook on him and putting him down. Left hook. Again, on Paulo Costa, on Rockhold, sorry, keep the shot that keeps getting him. I reckon Paulo Costa's going to put him out of there, put the pressure on early. Costa's going to try and kick while going backwards, and Costa closes the distance and lands a left hook on the chin, puts him out. Round 1, TKO for Paulo the Eraser Costa. We move on to the main event. Kamaru Usman versus Leon Edwards 2. I'm picking Leon Edwards to beat Kamaru Usman. I'm picking him to win. I think he's going to win this one. And I'm going to get some hatred for this pick. But I've got hatred for other picks that I've made. Bilal Muhammad over Luque. Jeff Neal over Luque. Recently. to say the least. I feel as though Edwards has really got this one in the bag. And the more I've been watching their fights, the more I believe it, man. People are going to say, oh, Edwards makes it look close too much. He does that by definition of his style. His style's not to beat you up. Usman's is. That's his game plan a lot of the time, is to march someone down and beat them up and make that difference in the scorecards. Edwards is a technician on the feet, and he minorly outpoints everyone that he takes on, regardless of the level that he's fighting at. And a lot of people are going to say he got dropped by Barberena. You know, he got wobbled by Nate Diaz. He didn't see these shots coming. And he was also toying with those opponents at the time as well, and he was kind of being a bit overconfident with himself and silly. Like, even before he got rocked by Nate Diaz, he was laughing at Diaz and doing a couple things in the cage, like middle fingers to Diaz as well. I feel as though a focused and switched on Leon in the biggest fight of his life is not going to make those mistakes to get hit by shots that he doesn't see coming. And I think he's going to give massive problems to Kamaru Usman. Massive problems on the feet. I don't see Usman taking him down. One of the major things that Edwards has improved is his grappling defense. And there are reasons for times that he's looked bad. He literally allowed Gunnar Nelson to take him to the ground because he knew he had won the fight. He out-grappled Gunnar Nelson in round 1 offensively. Okay? His grappling defense is his game. Okay? He's got such an ability to land elbows in the clinch, knees in the clinch. His clinch work has gotten way better. It's one of the best clinch works that we've seen in the UFC. So I don't see Usman being able to stall him out against a cage. Usman's going to have a game plan to wrestle. His knees have been injured so many times since that first fight. He started to not wrestle as much, and it's led him to want to develop his striking because he needs something to take over from not being able to really grapple guys anymore at the top level. Didn't want to grapple with Burns. Smartly, though, Burns is a jiu-jitsu guy, but couldn't keep down Masvidal in their second fight. Masvidal kept popping back up. I think Edwards is going to keep getting back up or not getting taken down in the first place and just being able to stuff the takedowns anyway. And I think after that, he's going to start kneeing the body, elbowing the face of Usman in the clinch, separating. Covington drew with Usman in his last fight. Covington was terrified of Usman early on, and Usman couldn't do anything to him in the first round, other than land a couple of shots. Covington, I'm a big Covington fan, was absolutely bricking himself. It means a different thing nowadays. Bricking his pants, shitting his pants in that first round against Usman in a rematch. Okay? He was terrified of Usman, and he still was able to stay safe in that first round. He got rocked in the second round, and once he got rocked and took it, he was like, okay, I'm in a fight. I'm switching on. I'm not going to be scared anymore. I'm going to go after Usman. And he started to go after him, and he was winning the third, fourth, fifth. Usman has broken his hand since then. He was not training hard for this Leon Edwards bout. He was trying to secure his hand injury, make it a bit better, and he's jumped straight into a training camp. I think breaking his power hand is going to lead to him being a little bit less committing with it. So I think it's going to take away a bit of that sting. The fight after you really badly break your hand and need massive surgery on it, your power hand, I think he's going to be a bit more hesitant with throwing it so much, especially recklessly. I think he's going to wait for perfect moments. And I think he overrates his own technique. And I think he's going to get out-techniqued by Leon Edwards. I think it's literally going to be a case of Covington was out-striking you in rounds 3, 4, and 5. Edwards is going to do it for 4 rounds of this fight at least. 49-46 Edwards. One judge gives Usman 48-47 because he's from Nigeria and Africa, and that seems to be how it works. Just saying. Adesanya 49-46 scorecard and Ngannou 49-46. Got a little bit of that, help from the judges here and there. So I'm going to say split decision, but Edwards should definitely win. But it will encourage a rematch between the pair of them. And I think it would lead to Chimaev versus the winner of Bilal Muhammad, Sean Brady, or something like that. So, Usman, Edwards, I'm siding with Leon Edwards here. I think he's going to be landing good body kicks. I think he's going to be landing good leg kicks. I think he's going to be stinging Usman with punches in this matchup as well. I really think people underrate the actual striking skill of Leon Edwards. And he's got... Leon Edwards has the best striking technique. Oh, Wonderboy though. Never mind. The second best striking technique ever in welterweight history. Truly believe it. People have been out-jabbing Usman in his fights. Not Burns, but Covington was out-jabbing Usman in their fight. And I know Covington does have better stand-up now, but that's not his game. It's Leon Edwards' game. Edwards has more power than Covington, more pop in his shots. He has a longer reach than Covington as well. Covington was consistently out-jabbing Usman in their second fight and doing well in the pocket and beating him in those exchanges with straight punches against Usman. Usman was flicking him out there, but he wasn't landing them clean. Covington was landing like good ones on Usman here and there and was jabbing with Usman in their first fight as well, but Usman's had a bit more pop because he had that extra range on his shots to go for. So I feel like Edwards, with just a 2-inch reach advantage, is going to have a much better time in the boxing. I don't think Usman's going to be able to pressure as much as he used to because of his knee injury and his inability to wrestle as much. I think he's going to play it patient, championship on the line, play it patient, try and be technical, and I think Edwards is going to school him on the feet. I think he's going to minorly outpoint him at a clear ratio in rounds 1, 2, 3, 4. Usman makes a rallying moment in round 5, gets a takedown, lands a shot that sort of like gets respect from Edwards for a bit and starts charging after him, but Edwards clinches and circles it round, and Usman gets a takedown, Edwards gets back up, Usman's punching him against a cage. But Edwards is going to win the first 4 rounds of this fight and win the fight 49-46. I'm a believer in Leon Edwards. That's 10 fights in a row. 10 fights in a row. Maybe now I can fight for the title. You have the title, Leon Edwards. Yeah, but now I've got the title, I guess I can fight for the title. Yeah, we get it, Leon Edwards. It's going to be annoying to listen to his voice as a champion, but I think it's going to happen. All the accumulated injuries of Usman, Edwards is fresh. He was, however old, when they first fought. When they first fought, it was 2015. Edwards was 23 years of age in one of his first fights in the UFC. Same with Usman, but Usman was 28 years of age. Edwards is 30. Usman is 35. Champions don't last forever. Leon Edwards wins. Body kicks that Covington was hurting Usman with. Body kicks. Leg kicks. Punches. Maybe an eye poke here and there. Leon Edwards gets this one done by decision. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye.